everybody, welcome back to CouchBlab Podcast. I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Hope.
I'm Ben.
And today we're going to be talking about a classic in the indie film genre. This film is Lost in Translation. Very, very nice film for those of you who haven't checked it out. And for those of you that aren't aware, basically it covers the subject of Japanese culture and the way foreigners fit into the kind of demographic. The film basically focuses on two main characters, Bob Harris, played by Bill Murray. He is a movie star who is basically dealing with a midlife crisis. You know, his marriage isn't going too great. He feels all alone and is just kind of feeling detached from his everyday lifestyle.
So basically like Bill Murray then.
Yeah, basically Bill Murray from the get-go.
Doing what Bill Murray does best.
Basically. And then along his journey, he meets another character named Charlotte, played by Scarlett Johansson, who is also kind of in the same rut. She's a young college graduate who... her husband basically goes away on these, photography venues, kind of leaves her alone, and she's also kind of disillusioned with their relationship, and they kind of build this bond and friendship that grows into a much more stable relationship over the course of maybe about 3-4 days they know each other. And the film kind of does this under the lights of Tokyo and trying to show off, their displacement in the culture, but also showing off, how they learn to gain acceptance of themselves and the world around them through their bond with each other. Personally, I think it's quite nice, but I know we have some varying opinions. Ben?
Is that it? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, okay. I think the movie is just kind of alright. I mean, again, it's not so much it's a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that, it's an okay movie. It's not really something I'm really into all that much. I understand, why, a lot of people like it. Yeah, and I like the idea of the romance between it. It's just that there are so many scenes in this movie that I feel that it's just padding, kinda, almost. And I get it, it's trying to establish the whole, we're these two foreigners in this world that's not, that's somewhat strange to us, and let's look at it in all of its weird ways. And then I'm just like, yeah, most of it's just you guys sitting around staring at things for hours.
Well, this movie was made all the way back in 2003. There are a couple scenes that I feel like are kind of on the nose for depicting Japan. When Bob is in the elevator surrounded by all those elderly salarymen, or when the shower head is too short, or when they all confuse the L's and the R's. It just kind of makes me go really? We gotta do this? Or but the quieter scenes on the other, I kind of disagree with you there, Ben. The quieter scenes where they're visiting the Buddhist temple, or just walking around and seeing everything in the city. I kind of like that,
Well, those parts are fine, but it's the ones where it's them with a bunch of people who are getting drunk in a small room somewhere while karaoke is being played or something. Those scenes I felt kind of dragged on a bit because there were so many of them paced throughout the movie.
Well, I mean, they were meeting up with friends, dude, it's gonna be oh, hey, this isn't just oh man, we're in a strange place, we have no friends, this place is so weird. It shows that they do have, human friends in Japan, and then they do human things, hang out. It's just kind of slightly different because it's Japan.
I think that, in my opinion, the scenes work really well. In fact, if I can go to the whole thing in which they're traveling and seeing the different parts of Japan, up until this point in the movie, basically the two characters have felt kind of lost in their environment, and they don't really understand the whole vibe of the city in which they're living in.
Lost in translation, if you will.
Basically. And so when they're kind of going through this city, it gives them this kind of different perspective on the city itself by showing the aspects of the culture when you're able to connect with others. Because a big thing is that, especially in Japanese culture, when basically you have the free time to go out and enjoy yourself, you really, really want to do it in the companionship of others. And since these characters are basically, revolving around their companionship and how they develop it, the scenes in which they can explore the city and they're out playing karaoke, and their new foreigner friends in which they developed accept them with open arms, is when the tone of the movie, which shifts from them being confused and kind of showing the confusion they have from the culture to something that they're just generally accepting and really enjoying their time. I think that it works in a much more positive light, so it helps them to kind of appreciate the environment in which they're in. So I do enjoy some of the scenes in which show showcase, Murray's character and Johansson's character kind of getting along a little bit more through their experiences of exploring the city, because it shows the best scenes in which they're actually starting to bond with each other.
Yeah, and I also like the counterparts of each of them, like Charlotte's husband and Bob's wife. Like a strained relationship. You can definitely see that they're having problems, but they're also trying to make it work. Like Bob's wife still calls him, and like she still tries to get him involved with the kids, and like she faxes him. And even though like it's a strained relationship, it's obvious that they're not going to leave each other. And on the other hand, too, like Charlotte's husband, like, all right, he's a bit of a dick here. I hate him, but like,
I think that's the point.
I know, but like he kind of like, I know it is the point, but like what's so great about it is like neither of these characters are painted in like a really black and white like other romantic movies can sometimes do. Like they're human. It's like the husband, he's just like, hey, I'm sorry I have this job. Like, I'm still here for you, and he kisses her, but but they can also do, like, where he's just like, why you gotta be like that? Why you gotta hate on everybody? Not everyone went to Yale. It's just, it's so good. I love the way this, I actually hate most romantic movies, but I love the way these relationships are portrayed.
I think that, kind of on the subject of that, what this movie has in a really good strength is just kind of showing the characters as multi-layered. At any point in the film, you never feel like you're fully with or against a character. Like, you kind of see that from their world perspective and kind of the situations that they're dealing with, they're both right and wrong in terms of how they view other people, especially in Bill Murray's character. That basically he's all alone, and he really just wants some sort of companionship. So when he gets to the scene where he sleeps with the opera singer, you're both upset with him, but you understand already the situation that he's in. So basically it's just like, it's kind of a mixed bag, and I think that kind of reflects on all the characters in general. You get a good sense that all the characters are kind of going through these different scenarios and situations that cause them to think a little bit more other than what is acceptable, but would make sense in each of their respective scenarios. And I think that kind of in the environment which they're in, being so lost in the culture, reflects on that as well.
Oh yeah, like every relationship that forms within this movie is driven out of a need of like comfort and familiarity, and the language barrier is pretty insurmountable, as we can see like in some of the probably like famous scenes, like the Suntory Times scene. Others, oh my goodness, that was a good scene.
Yes. The scene in question, for those of you that are curious, basically, the director's trying to give him instructions as to what he's supposed to be saying and doing, and each time that the instructor says like a whole 10 lines of dialogue as to what exactly he's supposed to be doing for the shooting, the interpreter's basically like, oh, just look at the camera, you've got this. So basically it causes the frustration of this poor interpreter and trying to make sense of what he's supposed to be doing, and because of it, Bill Murray messes up and the director gets upset, and then they keep going in this cycle of trying to understand what exactly the other person's supposed to be doing, which kind of shows the reflection of how disembodied each character feels, especially Bill Murray, who really just wants to get his job done and get the heck out of Dodge.
Yeah.
But the more confused that he is, the more that he has to stay there and the more frustrated that he gets.
And the best thing about it is, if you know a bit about Japanese and how spoken Japanese sounds, it is really hard to put that into English sometimes. For an other example other than this movie, I remember Nintendo had a contest where Suda51, a game developer, went on stage, and he spoke in such brash Japanese that the translator was just like, more games soon. That's what's happening. Good luck. And it's the same exact example what's happening in this scene here, because the director, when he's speaking to Bob in the commercial, he switches between 3 different styles of Japanese just to try and get his point across, and literally it can't be translated into English. So the translator, while on one hand being very not skilled, literally can only say that much to get across to Bob while making any sort of sense, and I think that's pretty brilliant in itself.
Yeah, speaking of games, I remember the scene where he goes onto that game show, and can I say, why can't the movie be about that game show host that was on there? Because, my god, that was a scene.
That was painful.
Well, I'm not really too fond of it as one of my favorite scenes, but I can kind of see the reason for it being needed, where, it's very common that, Japanese game show hosts will invite basically stars counterparts of different cultures, especially American, to kind of come in and experience their own little world of how they deal things. Because it's, once again, this isn't a scene where Bill Murray feels really disembodied with the culture and he's just trying to make sense of what exactly is happening. And what better way to show people of like how confused you are with your environment than a Japanese game show, one of the like most out there things from the culture. So like it's there in service of trying to show how the characters are dealing with their scenarios, but I feel like other scenes, especially the one with the director and the interpreter, did a better job of showcasing that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the whole movie is based off the director, Sofia Coppola's experiences in Japan while she was working on other film. So, like, the most obvious stuff is gonna jump out at her, like the stuff I discussed before, that's, like, really painful, kind of bordering on racist. But, like, for that game show thing where it's, like, freaky and kind of, like, out there to Americans and other foreigners, I liked it, but it was just like, ugh, this is really painful to watch.
Yeah, and there's other scenes that kind of illustrate that too. Like Bill Murray turns on the television trying to find something that makes sense to him, and before he gets to just a channel that's showcasing one of his films, he goes through like multiple channels that are just showing off like Japanese commercials and kind of showcasing, you know, some of the absurdity from that, and he's just trying to make sense of the environment. And in the case of like Murray's character and Johansson's character, by them developing their connection with each other, they gain more of a sympathetic appreciation for the culture. As the movie kind of carries on, you don't see as much of them being confused with it as just they're kind of all just taking it in, really. Especially all the way until the ending. And in the case of both characters, I think they do a really good job of portraying these different elements. Both actors really shine in this. If you want to see some of, in my opinion, Murray and Johansson's kind of best acting, I think that this film is a pretty good display of what they're capable of.
I mean, you know, like Bill Murray, I like whatever movie he appears in just because I like that Bill Murray kind of character. But here, especially, Scarlett, she hasn't quite reached that Kristen Stewart syndrome where she reads all of her lines in like the same tone of voice where she's just like, why are you here? What's going on? Like that sort of thing. And it's like, it's really refreshing actually for her to have some sort of vocal range in her performance where she's allowed to be, you know, happy at times, even though her character is going through, you know, like a really terrible time being a philosophy major of all things.
Yeah, on the subject of, you know, deeper meaning, jumping off that philosophy. Another big thing with this film that a lot of people have kind of taken note of is basically the meaning behind it. It's not necessarily the type of film, if you're not really into, I guess I should say art house or whatever, this might be a film that will draw you away because of the fact that for you to kind of look behind the lines and see what everything's supposed to be talking about. It's not really a film that's going to kind of spoon feed you what exactly you're supposed to be looking at, which you might either appreciate or you might actually hate because a lot of the times it's going to get a little confusing. And in my opinion, I think that it's enjoyable enough so that you can kind of understand what's going on without having to analyze every small thing. But especially, I won't spoil the ending, it's going to require you to have to, you know, not just take it from face value, which might detract some people. But another big thing with it, taking away that element of them being, I guess, for lack of better words, lost in translation, with the ending especially, you know, having to take that understanding into kind of the forefront of the story and understanding that that comes into play with the actual characters take on their worldview from the beginning of the film to the end of the film.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had to describe this film, it would basically just be like The Terminal, but the guy actually gets out into the country before he goes home.
It's a very artsy film. It's a focus feature film, so like if you're familiar with focus features' work, you're probably gonna understand what you're getting into here. A lot of like films from focus features are in the kind of indie category, which they're very soft, flowing. They don't really like to spoon feed you the information. They want you to kind of think more about what's going on, which in some cases, if you still don't get it, then you're gonna be a little bit lost. So definitely, if you do have the chance, take the time to look at this movie, and if you're still confused, you can kind of look online. There's been analysis of this film everywhere.
Yeah, and we won't spoil the ending, but it is really worth seeing, especially the part where Nick Fury comes out and asks Scarlett Johansson if she wants to be part of the Avengers Initiative. Wait, that wasn't in the movie?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, I think I was watching the wrong movie.
But basically, to close, I think that it's a film that's definitely worth taking a look at if you're interested into indie films, or if you're interested in Japanese culture, especially for people that are interested in, you know, like, I guess, you know, like the anime category, for example.
Then watch Seven Samurai.
Shut up. But if you do like, something like that, definitely take the time to look over this film and kind of get a viewpoint from a different perspective of how people see themselves in the Japanese culture, as well as it gives some really, really nice like visuals and kind of details about Japanese nightlife and the way that people interact with each other in the culture. It's a very enjoyable experience if that's what you're mainly into, or if you're just interested in seeing a good story about characters that are kind of lost in their own respective worlds and they're just trying to find meaning. It does a pretty good job at saying if you're a little bit detracted by a film that's very slow paced and doesn't really try to give the information you're looking for, this may be something that alienates you, but I think either way, just take the time to look at it and just make your own assumptions if you want to.
I mean, I for one appreciated this movie for being like, a friendship romance film that didn't make me want to gouge my eyes out, just personally saying.
Yeah, for my opinion on the final thoughts. Again, it's a good movie, but it's really for a particular taste of people who want to watch this. Aside from that, there's not really that much else to say. If you like romance movies, I could probably say that there's plenty more out there that would probably be a better, easier sit through to watch. But if you're interested, you should check this one out.
Definitely. And if you're looking for somewhere to watch this movie at the time of recording this, it's available both on Blu-ray as a multi-format disc, and you can also get it on Amazon Video as well. And you can also get it on iTunes and a version of it on YouTube. Basically, it's a very well-known movie, so you can find it through various streaming services. It isn't currently on Netflix. That might change in the future, but I would say your best bet to physically own this movie and keep it all to yourself would be to get the multi-format Blu-ray that's currently out right now. So definitely get the chance to go and check that out.
I mean, it's on Netflix DVD if anyone uses Netflix DVD anymore.
Yeah, that's up to you. But basically, if you're interested in finding a way to get access to this film, there's different locations for you to basically check out. Okay, but I think that just about sums up everything that we feel is necessary to say about this movie. If you want to check out more of our content, we do have a Patreon set up over at our page. We also are on iTunes, we're on SoundCloud, and we have our own respective blog if you want to see more of our content available. We highly encourage you to go and check out our Patreon. It lets us keep the lights on, keep doing this, because we like doing it, and being able to talk about all the different types of films that are out there for you.
All right, that sums it up.
Yep.
Alrighty, and well, in that case, I'm Tiffany, and my two co-hosts.
I'm Hope.
And I'm Ben, and let's hope the next movie about Japan that we talk about is about a giant fire-breathing monster.
Is it? I haven't looked at the schedule.
All right.
All right.
But thank you so much for coming to check us out, and we'll see you later.
All right. Bye.